I don't think so. I think there's a need because there's a lot of agitation, there's a lot of killings, there's a lot of misunderstanding in many states of the federation. And these are states where you have confused a kind of a deliberate attempt to make some people to be undermined, to make some people to be subdued. It shouldn't be. There's no reason for it. So to me, we must restructure this country. If we don't do it now, we must get it done. It must be done. It will be done, you know. And that is the beginning of nationhood. When we restructure, or we are determined that we have made up our mind as a people to restructure this country, we restructure the country in such a manner that states will equally contribute, you know, to the center. It's not a question of you sit down and manna is falling from heaven. There's no state, there's no local government in Nigeria that is not endowed with one resource or the other. But today, people are sitting down at home, expecting oil money to come. Okay? We must look at how state must be told in a clear terms. The days of Father Christmas is gradually coming, it will get over one day. Oil is not for life, oil is not permanent. What happens after oil? Dubai is investing their money now because they knew where that the oil will dry up one day. So state must get to know that, look, you have to be looking inward as to what you can exploit in order to improve the well-being of your people. That's number one. Number two is the fact that what is state contributing? I do not believe that when a particular mineral resources is gotten from a particular state, then that state should not even have a say as to what goes to the center. Okay? They have to be asked, okay, let us agree, what percentage are we going to contribute to the center? Okay? I hold that view. Because if there's oil in my community, I'm not going to agree that you take 100% what you exploit from my land. You must let us know what is the percentage. So, good as the derivation is, I hold the view there's a need to improve it upon it. Now, if you do that, other states will start looking at what is available for them. Okay? Of recent, I read of a publication of coal in Gombe. There's no state where we cannot look for some one or two things that everybody will contribute. I don't want to be seen as a parasite, and I don't think I'm one. I don't think my area is one. But we must restructure in such a manner that everybody will see the reason as to why we have to contribute to the center. Now, is restructuring possible under this present administration? There's nothing possible in politics once you have the will. If you have the will, and I'm not in doubt that if the president is not committed to it, he wouldn't have set up the national conference. It shows that he wants a change. Now, to me, we can. But again, we have obstacles to cross. What are those obstacles? Number one, we're talking about a referendum. Referendum is not in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So, if you want to restructure, and we want to restructure in such a manner that the will of the people will prevail, then the referendum is the most effective way of effecting a restructuring and a change. And I'm for that. I'm for a referendum. I want a situation where the people will be allowed themselves to do the voting, not the politician. Okay? The National Conference, quite a number of them are politicians. And I could see from what I've read that some of the political consideration of some individuals got involved in the recommendation of the conference. Now, there's nothing bad when you allow your political position to influence a report, but it must be progressive. Where it is not progressive, it becomes a problem. It must not be selfish. Where it becomes glaringly selfish interest, then it has a problem already. Now, but in any case, I'm appreciative of the fact that those areas, those critical areas, have been further highlighted by the conference. How do you go about it? There must be a referendum. How do you get the referendum project kick off? You must first amend the Constitution. There must be a provision for referendum entrenched in the Constitution. As it is today, there's no clause for a referendum to be carried out in Nigeria. So how do you now implement the report of the National Conference? You bring it to the National Assembly, well, God help Nigeria. Many people will rise against it. Some will rise for it, okay? Because, to me, the report of the conference is not sacrosanct. It is not a holy Bible for me not to touch, not to amend. Okay, that's number one. Number two is the fact that if you bring the report of the National Conference to the National Assembly. It is simply advisory. It is just a recommendation advising National Assembly what they think should be done. The National Assembly member will tell you we have our own opinion on issues, and every one of us will stand up for our father's name. So for the conference report to be implemented, the most effective way to go about it is to allow us to have a referendum. Let the people vote for what they want, how they want to be governed. If the people of Adamawa state says they want a state, we ask them, can you manage yourself? Yes, you can. Okay, let them run their state. When they cannot, they will ask for a merger. If the Yorubas in Kogi says they want to leave Kogi state, for Christ's sake, let them leave. If they are going to Kwara or they want a state of their own or they want to match with the part of Kwara, let them have it. That can only be realized when the people decide. Allow the individual to do the voting. It's not a question of us imposing our position on the people. Individuals should be allowed to vote. And the most effective way to do it is through a referendum. For that to be carried out, you must amend the Constitution. As things are today, the Constitution doesn't have a provision for a referendum. And all over the world, nations that are progressive, nations that are making meaningful effort in improving the well-being of their people, are nations where you have in their constitution a referendum clause. Because the people can decide to call for a vote on any issue. But is having a referendum the only answer? Because we've seen that situation play out in Sudan, where we had the referendum, and the two nations are still in crisis. Nigeria is not Sudan. Nigerians are except some people who probably have some mental disorder that will be talking about this country being dissolved. You know, it pays all of us to remain one strong nation. That is the truth of the matter. And every part of this country is important. Every part of this country is where I'm proud of. I mean, there's no area in Nigeria that is not endowed. Okay, so nobody is talking about Nigeria breaking up. So now you cannot compare the situation in Sudan with what is happening in Nigeria. Nigeria, we are talking about managing our internal affairs in such a manner that everybody will feel comfortable with the system. Okay? But as things are today, people are agitating because, see, the longer we delay restructuring, the more problem we are creating. So we must restructure this country in such a manner that everybody will be happy where he is. Okay? You do not put people in a place where they are not happy or they feel they are second-class citizens. Nobody wants to be a second-class citizen. Okay? So let us restructure Nigeria so that we can harness all the God-given endowed resources that are available, human and material resources. And until when we do that, this country will still be finding it difficult to move forward. Now, what if the recommendations from the National Conference comes to the National Assembly as a bill sponsored by maybe any member of the National Assembly or an executive bill or a private member bill? Well, it cannot come as a bill, you see, because why that cannot come as a bill is you are talking of a fundamental change in the political structure of this country. Okay, you are talking about a holistic reform of the nation. It's beyond what one bill can do. Okay? Every aspect of the proposed recommendation of the National Assembly must be subjected to a referendum. Now, if it doesn't come through a referendum, then it doesn't make sense. It means you allow the National Assembly to determine the number of states we want to create. We determine how we want to restructure Nigeria. As long as there's no referendum provided for in that recommendation, and as long as the recommendation of the National Assembly, the National Conference will not go through a referendum, then there's no reason for anybody to talk to us in the National Assembly, because we're intelligent enough to know the needs and the aspirations of Nigerians. So we'll go ahead to do it the way we see it. Now, still on the issue of referendum, you were saying that having a referendum might be the only plausible way for the report of the National Conference to be implemented or see the light of the day. So who will bring up this process of referendum? Before now, we have started discussion on the possibility of amending the Constitution. Yes, but referendum was not mentioned. Of course, referendum is one issue that will still have to be discussed. You know, the National Assembly Standing Committee on the Amendment of the Constitution is still very much alive. Okay, so we're still going to talk about referendum because there's no way you can implement the National Conference report without first and foremost amending the Constitution in such a manner that referendum will be entrenched in the Constitution. If that is not done, how do you amend the Constitution? How do you implement those recommendations? You know, those recommendations, like I told you, they are just mere recommendations to the National Assembly. They are just, there's nothing sacrosanct about the National Conference report, except when we have amended the Constitution for a referendum, then whatever document you are bringing can now be implemented through the amended clause of the provision of a referendum clause in the Constitution. If you don't provide that clause in the Constitution, you cannot implement the recommendation of the National Conference. What you can then do is to ask the National Assembly members to look at those issues that are recommended, and we start discussing it on the floor of the Senate.
If the report from the National Conference comes to the National Assembly, the recommendations, would the National Assembly, this Assembly, have enough time to deliberate on the recommendations, vote on it and pass it, bearing in mind that this Assembly is winding down, the elections are just a few months away? Is there enough time?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I hold the view that we don't have the time. By the time we get back in the chamber by middle of September, by 30th of September, quite a number of legislators will be talking about preparing for their primary elections. Okay? Now, those who will not come back may not necessarily be attending the National Assembly any longer. I mean, even when we're in session, people don't come. Okay, so the attendance is still poor. So what I'm saying in essence is the time is not just there for this conference report to be discussed on the floor of the National Assembly. I hold the view that the first step must be done. The first step is to amend the Constitution, and let us have a provision of a referendum, you know, so that you see, the slogan of our party is power to the people. The people will determine what they want. So it's not just individuals standing. Let us allow the people, because we are talking about a fundamental change, you know, in the way and manner you are going to administer the people, the way and manner you are going to manage the resources of the people, the way and manner you want the people to be governed. Now, that is beyond what you do with just less than 500 people. Let the people decide their fate. Let the people vote, and that can only be done when you have a clause in the Constitution that empowers the president to conduct a referendum. As it is today, there is no provision in the 1999 Constitution that empowers Mr. President to carry out a referendum. So the only way out is the National Assembly must first and foremost get the Constitution amended, provide for a referendum. When that is done, then with the first hurdles, the fundamental hurdles is crossed. They will now look at those recommendations and throw it to the people to decide. That is the best way to put Nigeria on the track of peace, stability, and prosperity.
Now, those were the views of the senator. Do you agree? What are your own views? You can write to us through any of the addresses on the screen. I look forward to your reactions to these developments in the parliament and other issues you feel will be of benefit to our democracy. I hope to hear from you. Till next week, I'm Lanre Lasese. Bye.